In any good story, you're going to have a rivalry. In Bannerlord, the geographical situation gives us likely rivalries for the field of glory. And in this episode and series, you'll learn to confront your main rivals with devastatingly effective tactics. Buckle up. Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to Bannerlord and all things Bannerlord related. We continue our tactical circuit around Calradia here, showing you advanced tactics that you can use in your own campaign against your likely rivals in your campaign. Now we've got to do STURGIA versus Khuzait here. We've already covered STURGIA versus Botania, and we're outnumbered here in this first example by 20%. Both sides are using tier 4 through 6 units, and we will let the sergeant fight this first battle. Now we're going to employ some various different tactics in this episode. I will also employ tactics I've seen on other YouTube channels and explore their potential and weaknesses, and we will see what kind of tools we can give you guys for your tool bag as you face Mancha Khan and this enormous army of horse archers. Now I've dramatically edited this first battle because it took several minutes. In fact, we'll do after narrating for quite a bit of this, but just to show you some of this battle, and you can sort of see the results. The results were very ugly. Of course, the Sturgeons hit up against the edge of the map. It didn't save them. Ultimately, the Khuzait charged with infantry while they smashed them with horse archers and cavalry, and it was an ignoble defeat. All right, the next thing I want to try is something I saw actually on Strat Gaming Guide. This is a popular tactic out there. In fact, it's been recommended for me to try. Notice we have 60% infantry. And again, some people might say get rid of the line breakers or maybe get rid of the axemen. But what I've done here is both sides have just strictly tier 4 through 6 units. And what that does with only 18% cavalry is it means that we're seriously outnumbered, not only in total troops by 20%, but also in the noble line. That means we only have some 20 Dradzinic champions, while they might have maybe 40 of Khan's guards. So that's a big disadvantage here. Now, in Strat Gaming's guides, in one of his episodes, he showed this tactic, and I've toyed around with it a little bit, and I find it to be modestly effective. But I think it's more effective against lower level Khuzait armies. Against Khan's guards and high level Khan's guards, especially if they have a lot of horse archers, read 30 or 40% of their army, I don't think this is going to be very effective. Now it also relies on infantry. We've got 60% of our army as infantry here, and the concept is fairly simplistic. We've got 2 archer divisions protected by sort of a ring or a diamond of squares. We're going to move these guys forward. In his guide, his tactics guide for Sturgeons, he's keen on having 4 infantry divisions to take advantage of the Sturgeon shields. Unquestionably, that is one of the very few advantages the Sturgeons have. They're outstanding defensive units. They're high-end infantry. A lot of them have outstanding armor. Their spearmen, the veteran spearmen, has some of the very best tier 5 armor in the game. Now, in theory, these archers are protected because the enemy's shooting at the square here. It sort of gets in the way of the enemy shooting your archers. And then what he did is he jousted at the back here with cavalry. So I will try to reenact some of this while I extrapolate on some of my earlier thoughts of pros and cons of this route. Again, one of the biggest difficulties in this situation is we're not only outnumbered, but we're outclassed. The enemy has more tier 5 and 6 units than we do in this battle. On top of that, they have almost twice as many noble units. Now, he didn't really do this, but it makes sense. You'd kind of trap the Khuzait. He sort of attacked when they came through. In this case, I'm just having these infantry divisions try to attack as they retreat. That way, all our axe swingers are getting some bloodlust in here, smashing the horses up. Seems to be doing a pretty good job here. We suffered a few deaths there, but that was definitely a positive exchange. We'll see if we can repeat that. Maybe this will be successful. Now, I foresee a difficult part here. We're regrouping now in the face of all their archers shooting. Again, it's impossible to recreate his exact scenario. In fact, I think it was from a campaign, which it makes it impossible unless he sends me the save game. I do have the greatest respect for Strat Gaming Guide. This is not intended to like troll the guy or something like that. I just wanted to include this just to sort of give you guys some variability and different tactics. It opens my eyes a little bit thinking about using squares in a big wide perimeter like this, and it also shows some of the deliciousness of Bannerlord. Now their archers are firing away here, so I've decided to shield wall that front division. That way they absorb arrows more. And I'll just tell you one thing right away. I think the key to winning in this battle and in general in Bannerlord remains something that I echo all the time on the channel. Most experienced players know this, as archers are supremely powerful. Now, just moving our square in their way actually got some kills there too, but we're suffering an awful lot of death, and that is simply because we're so badly outgunned from a ranged perspective. They have a huge amount of archers, and of course all these horse archers. The death spam looks pretty rough, and I'll continue to sort of jostle our cavalry back and forth here, but this actually doesn't look like it's going to be very successful. We'll do little status checks here and there during this episode. There's no drama here, but I see our archers being executed en masse. And, you know, you guys are certainly welcome to chime in here and say something I did wrong. Again, this second demonstration is more out of curiosity to see how effective it is to use this tactic against the Khuzait. All right, I've sped up some of this process here just because it was rather lengthy, this jostling back and forth. Ultimately, I did not have success here, and I'm certainly open to both feedback and or criticism. Maybe somebody else has adapted this tactic and did things that I obviously didn't see, but ultimately we had fairly poor results with this. And it's important to mention that our scenario here just may be a lot harder than the one he was dealing with. His was a campaign situation. Ours is a custom battle with no captains, no min-max advantages, none of that stuff. On top of that, we're badly outnumbered and outgunned. All right, let's jump into another battle here. Again, the same settings, exact same settings in each example here. Now, I would prefer many more archers. I would prefer, and we're going to talk about this extensively in these episodes, I would prefer 30 to 50% archers. However, for the guys who either have an army of Sturgia that's a lot of infantry in this situation, or you just don't want to use a lot of archers, for whatever reason, if this is your desire, let me show you how I would try to fight this same battle here. I'm actually going to use an amalgamation of some of the tactics I've used before against the Khuzait, and also some of the tactics that Strat was displaying in the last video. Again, just so everybody's clear, I don't know the fella. I just know he's an outstanding content creator of Bannerlord, and I heartily recommend you check out his channel. I want to make sure everybody understands that I'm not taking a jab here at Strat Gaming Guides. All right, so the 7th division is going to be a Jav Cav division, and I'm going to call them basically my sheepdog division. These guys here, despite their small size, are going to try to intimidate the enemy horse archers, and I'll explain more about that in a second. Now we're going to have three divisions of infantry here. What I want to do is I want to have 2 distractionary squares so we can kind of shove them around and distract the enemy, absorb arrows, and then I'm going to have 1 attack dog division that's inside a circular ring, and I'll show you what this looks like. So again, 1st division, 6th division, both defensively. Let's see. And then we'll have about 25 or 35 cavalry protecting, let's do a little bit more than that, about 45 cavalry protecting this 3rd division. This 3rd division, the reason I'm adjusting these other divisions here is I want there to be a few shields in there. That way these guys can shield wall and have a little bit of protection inside the ring. You're going to get hit with so many arrows against the Khuzait. I think you can make an argument for more shields and less shock troops, although the shock troops certainly are going to do the killing too. You kind of need some of both, and it's a question everybody probably is going to have their own mix. I would say 60-70% shields and 30% shock troops is a good mix. For this, we're just going to have a big fat 3rd division towards the front of the circle. So it's a ring defense. We're going to put weak archers in the middle of the ring, and then we're going to have very powerful archers outside it. And it seems strange, but this is an amalgamation of a tactic that I call the firing squad. The biggest concept here is that these guys are basically waiting, like the hands of a clock, waiting for the enemy to come into their sights, and they just gun them down. And I'll show you how effective this is. Now at the beginning here, I'm just going to use the 3D setting here, this first-person perspective, to see the hills. You cannot see this very easily with the RTS mod, and this is very important. I mention it all the time. Your archers must have good line of sight. If they're down a hill and can't see the horse archers till they get over the ridge, it's not going to work, right? It's essential that you as the commander make sure that your archers have good line of sight. Now that's our firing squad division. There goes our sheepdogs way to the other side of the map. And then the square, both squares out kind of in front. And then that 3rd division towards the front and a fat shield wall. That way a lot of those shields at least are in front. The good thing is when the AI has a mix of shields and shock troops in an infantry division, it will put the shields generally towards the front. Now notice where our sheepdog division is. They're on the opposite side of the horse archers. That is because we're going to charge with them and just sort of occasionally chase the Khuzait away. We don't want the Khuzait circling us and getting behind us. Also, when the horse archers retreat, they tend to not shoot because they're facing the wrong direction. That means they're vulnerable that whole time. Now we're just going to simply reset our sheepdogs. We're not going to get close to the enemy archers and rinse and repeat. Now we'll probably do this 3-4 times and it would be way more effective with more archers, right? It's just common sense. We're doing all of our killing early on in this battle with archers. So if you have very few archers, you're not going to be able to do a lot of killing, right? If we had triple the archers or even just double, this would be a very different battle than this is going to be. Explain some of the other details here. The weak archer division is inside the circle because they have very weak armor. Those guys are the guys I need to protect the most from cavalry charges, etc. Now this outer square is doing a good job of attracting attention, attracting arrows. Meanwhile, our archers are shooting. Every once in a while, our sheepdogs come in here and throw a few javelins. And they're not going to do a lot of killing. What they're going to do is do that. They're going to make the enemy go the other way. Meanwhile, our archers are shooting them as they run. And as they come in, of course, our archers continue to work. I would say it's been modestly effective. Now, this is the typical cycle for the AI when it has Khuzait. Its archers and infantry will sit at range, its cavalry will observe, and the enemy's trying to soften us up here with their horse archers. Well, once they suffer a significant amount of losses, the rest of their units will charge, and that's going to be coming soon. Now look at these archers, right? They got a nice angle on the enemy here, and this time a little different approach. I squared that 7th division. Yes, you could square cavalry, and so those guys are shifted to a purely defensive mode, basically distracting the enemy. I'm not sure if that's going to be very effective. Sometimes you try things and it doesn't work. Now I'm just going to have them charge. There's like 15 guys, and it's rapidly dwindling. Now our archers are getting strafed. To quote, naval warfare, they are crossing our T's here. It's not a good situation. However, look what's going to happen when they retreat. Okay, the enemy is starting to move the rest of their troops in. Let's start backing up our infantry here to concentrate. The good news, though, is that they're getting shot and scorched as they basically get locked up. They're kind of locked up with our cavalry back there. Now, we're not going to charge here until their units commit. Their infantry's coming up, their cavalry's coming up, and right now we're just absorbing. Our archers are still shooting. We've got all these different troops here. It's the 1st, it's the 3rd, it's the 2nd, it's the 6th, and most of them are in pretty good health because they haven't been attacking. They've been playing defensively. Now that the enemy's on us, now is the time to spring the trap. You want to attack with all 4 of these divisions. That way they have that concentrated firepower. The archers here lose their ring of protection, but that's okay. We're in a desperate fight to the end here. Everybody's got to be, they're on their own at this stage, right? All hands on deck, to be sure. So it's messy, but we certainly have more heavy infantry and more total units in there. And I think it's going to be enough to win. It's going to be close. Again, I would prefer this battle we had more archers. In fact, what I think I'll do is I'll just demonstrate the effectiveness of archers. The next battle, we will fight this same battle, exact same circumstances, with like 25% more archers. Now, I'm also setting up a shield wall here in the front as our units sort of cleave their way through the center of the battlefield. I like to move units up in a shield wall. That way the archers spraying aren't really hitting a lot of your troops that are still fighting. That is a tactic also you will see us employ on the channel regularly. Now, I think enough of our infantry is up to win this battle. They're trying to kite with their archers, and they're actually getting some decent space because of that. They're racking up the kills here as we close, but our infantry is now starting to puncture the center of their archers, and I think it's going to be enough. Indeed, looking up the power bar, now you know that the infantry just reached their archers. That's what happens when shock troops reach archers. They get split in half, and it looks like they just routed. So, not an overwhelming victory, but compared to the other 2 battles, both of which we lost by a large margin, this was a destructive example of how tactics can be effective. A little bit different than the previous 2 examples as far as tactical formations, but a very different result. All right, now let's see if we can't beat that. 130 guys survived. Let's see if we can't double that here. So again, very same circumstances here. I'm just going to add more archers. In fact, something like that would be optimal. You don't want to have too few cavalry because they're nice for defense. But that's the key, right? Everybody's like, all right, cavalry, charge. I want an army of cavalry. The bottom line is they suck. I've done extensive testing. I've played more than most human beings. It's just hard to explain how much of this I play. I can play at work, right? So I've got this luxury. We're going to play with a lot of archers here, and I'll basically reinforce what most of the guys who visit our channel know, the message we continue to spread, that archers are dog shit in Bannerlord. That cavalry is dog shit in Bannerlord. That's all there is to it, and archers are king. It's lopsided. It's so much so that I really hope Tailworlds either nerfs archers or improves cavalry big time. The rumor is that they're planning on adjusting cavalry. I don't think they're going to adjust it enough to make me happy, but we'll see. Now, relatively simplistic divisions here. It's very similar. You notice I have the 4th, 5th, and 6th are archers. The 2nd will be cavalry. The 7th will be javcav. Most of this is standard, and I always recommend that for your army. If you're playing Sturgia, get used to formations that are the same each time, right? That way you're not going to make mistakes because you forget who's where. Now, relatively simple here. I've got an infantry division with mostly shields. You can see the preference to shields. I've got a weak archer division, again, that we're going to put in the center. The reason it's nice is because they're never getting charged by cavalry. If cavalry do get in there, they're not moving very fast, and so those guys don't get split apart by a devastating cavalry charge. Behind that 1st division, we have shock troops, and I'll explain here in a bit why we're separating them. You really want to do, and I talk about it a lot, you want to have a separate shock troop and infantry division. Now, I'm not loving this hill that's in the way here. This landscape is sort of making it difficult for me to show you, and also to allow the enemy to circle behind us. The easiest way, of course, is just to position at the back of the map against Khuzait and make it physically impossible for them to retreat or wrap around you, rather. Most people consider that close to cheating or close to an exploit. I think cheese is the word you young guys use. I like cheese, though, so I don't know. Maybe you guys haven't had good cheese yet if you think cheese is a bad word. All right, so I'm going to stretch an archer line down from that hill. Again, that's the strongest division. That is the firing squad. Up on that higher ridge, I'm actually putting another archer division, so it kind of looks like an L shape. It's basically one good archer division kind of at the top of that hill, one elite archer division angled down to our main force here, and then the weakest archers right here coming up protected in the middle. They're all going to, do some damage, but for sure, those guys that are inside the circle here, the main thing we're trying to accomplish there is protection for those boys. Now, it's a little bit of a difficult battlefield to show you every detail here, but I do want to run around the field just so you can see the effectiveness up close. Again, we have our sheepdog division, right? So the enemy's coming straight at our archers, and they want to circle us, but we have these archers out in the open, so they're not really sure what to do. What they should do is run right through them. If I was facing that with my horse archers, I would just have our guys run literally right through them, truck them on their back, and then we'd be behind the enemy. The AI tends to get a little bit uncomfortable when there's any units around their horse archers, right? They're trying to kite. So it's sort of against the rules for them to make contact. Well, they've ignored our sheepdog division. In come these boys, they charge. They're going to scare off the Khuzait, and while that's happening, our archers are shooting. Now, they're charging our middle here before I was able to go over there and show you. But what we're going to do here is just shove the 1st division out in a square. We're going to do that for a defensive manner, and then we're going to charge that 3rd division. That shock troop division, those guys can be unleashed. They're inside the circle. They'll have protection against archers, and they're going to maul cavalry that are in the circle. They'll protect those archers as well that are in there. Now, look at that. That's our best archer division, and nothing is attacking them. These infantry are sort of coming up, but there's a long way for them to go to get to these archers. These guys are just loving their commander, firing away unimpeded. There's no cavalry attacking them. They even have a little cav division here sort of buttressing them and throwing javelins and stuff like that. And the enemy infantry really has no idea what to do. And there's not much for them to do except die at this stage. The archers up top there are raining arrows down into the enemy ranks. They're unperturbed. The horse archers are getting executed. Our shock troops are bellowing in the center circle, and this battle, I think it's already over. Even though, I mean, that was a huge flush of green. Even though maybe it doesn't feel like it to you, if you're not super experienced, I can just tell you this battle is over. The enemy's in such a bad spot. It's checkmate. All right, now a little chef's kiss, as guys like to say. They got 104 archers just spraying us. Let's go ahead and give them a shield right in the face. This is a tactic I love. While we're executing the rest of their forces behind these guys, we send up our strongest cavalry not to attack. They're simply there to eat arrows. That's how weak cavalry is in Bannerlord. This is your best use for them. Now watch this shit. They are absorbing tons of arrows because they have good defense. They have no offense, but all of these archers are point blank firing right into their shields, and almost none of them are dying. That is the power of cavalry and Bannerlord. Now, these guys have annihilated the rest of the infantry. Let's shield them even more. Look at this shit, right? We can move up our first, first, third. The second is in front of them, so the first and third can move behind this wave of cavalry, and this is often a strategy I refer to as shield and shock. Your shields are out in front, your infantry's now moving in, and these archers are just absolutely FUCT. They're fucked. They've got cavalry now boring in on them. Shock troops are behind heavy infantry. We still have a lot of archers back here shooting. It does look like their horse archers are dead. And this is, kind of the death knell here. And this is a little bit of savagery here. Even though these guys absolutely ran the wrong way, total dipshits, it's still over, right? And these poor archers, they get pounded with axes and bellowing sturgeons just going for the kill. Cavalry are spearing everything else. And this wasn't just a victory here. This was utter destruction. I mean, I'm kind of shocked we were able to decimate them this badly. So let's try a harder challenge. Evidently that wasn't hard enough. All right, let's look for a landscape that here, actually, this is perfect. Iltan Swap. This is a landscape you'll face if you're playing the Sturgeons against the Khuzait. This is near Tayal. You'll fight very often in this landscape. So let's go ahead and demonstrate here. Let's fight a huge force. What is that? 170. That's almost 40% more troops. And of course, they're going to have way more Khans guards than we have Sturgeon veteran bowmen. These little pathetic, so-called pathetic Sturgeon archers. Let's see what we can do with these guys here. Now, of course, we're going to try to use the swamp here. The swamp is critical. On the surface, this is a disaster battlefield because you can get stuck sort of in the swamp with your own units. The horse archers will circle you in the forest. Good luck finding them once they get to the forest. But obviously, we're going to try to concentrate our forces here. Now, I'm thinking about several different things at once. I want to have a reserve archer division, so I think we'll put the weakest archers at the back and actually have them hold fire. Against so many Khuzait, it's possible that we engage in a ranged battle in this episode, and I don't want them just wasting ammo. We may need them later. Now, 1, 2, 3, we're going to get flanked probably on both sides. So let's run 3 cav divisions. We'll have our attack dog division, the cav division, the 7th. They can have javelins, and then I'll run cav divisions on both flanks. And I think we'll probably do shock troops over here on the left. I think the reason, or on the right rather, the reason that makes sense to me is because, of course, the horse archers will circle the other side. You don't want your shock troops getting shot by horse archers. They're just toast, insta dead. So let's put these guys here behind this 8th division over here. They will have a little bit of protection from the cavalry, and they're likely to be charged by cavalry, which will be a good situation for us. This is all about figuring out how to gain small wins across the battlefield in every element of the battle. I mean, we're absolutely outgunned and outmatched here. We must win with tactics to succeed. So 60, about 60, I think, give or take, in that 6th division. Now, I have certain triggers in my head that I'm thinking of what will cause me to shoot with those guys. One of them would be the horse archers getting behind us. I'm going to try to prevent that with that attack dog division, the 7th Corps. So 7th Corps javelins. I could try to jam up the swamp a little bit with the 1st and 2nd. And every battle against horse archers is a little different because it depends on what they do, right? We'll have to adjust on the fly here. So 7th Jav guys, lots and lots of micromanagement. I don't want to go ahead and advertise this as an easy battle for a relatively inexperienced player to just jump in and do. This is sort of explaining and demonstrating on the higher end of difficulty what is possible here. This is going to be a formidable challenge. It reminds me of The Last Samurai. I mean, there's like fog and mist and shit in the valley here. It looks gnarly. And get these archers right at the edge of the swamp. Well, the idea, of course, is we want the enemy mostly in the swamp and us out of it. That way our movement is quick and theirs is slow. we're going to try to just take some of the speed out of these enemy horses. Now, I don't want these archers that far back. We'll move them up just a little bit. And again, that 6th division of archers, our weakest archers, kind of like the ancient warfare. Oh shit, they're already hitting us. Those guys will be in reserve just holding fire. The rest of our archers are going to be firing until they're out of ammo. If we win this, they'll probably have to fight in melee. Now, I can't see the enemy. I can't make them out very well here, but they do have 90-something horses on our right flank. So we got to cover that shit. Get in their attack dog division. Prevent them from... I'm running into shit here on the battlefield. I don't know if I can stop them now from circling us. They are initiating a circle. All right, let's see what we can do here. Let's try to get behind them here with the 2nd division. This is not a good situation. Let's try to block them with the 1st division in a square here. This is sort of worst case scenario. Let's try to shove these guys at least out of the forest here. The 7th division is on the other side, so they're sandwiching themselves. And our archers, right, we have lots of archers, are getting some kills. What I got to make them do is retreat here. So I'm bringing in the 7th and the 2nd aggressively here to try to push them out of our backfield. I don't know if it's going to work. They are hitting that 6th division, so that's a trigger for those guys to shoot, right? Those little weaker archers, we need every single one of those guys shooting. And we've probably lost this battle here unless we can get them to regroup like... Okay, here they go. Okay, they are starting to pull back right through the midst of our units here. Now, they're going to trample our archers, but let's get our cav and 2nd division just clog up the middle here. They're actually running right down the fucking chute of all these archers. They are getting scorched on the way out. We're making them pay for that circle attempt. Now we've got cavalry in the 1st division here, going to jam them up further. It looks like the rest of the enemy cavalry is moving up to charge, so we'll have to get this 1st division tucked in here. Let's see, shit. Fucking my brain is fucking spinning 12 directions. Here comes cavalry, 1st division there. The shock troops are ready over here on the right flank. That should do just fine. We can't pay attention to their horse archers at this stage, right? The rest of their forces are coming. It's starting to get messy, and I'm trying to maintain, some order here, some composure. It's very easy in a battle like this to lose track of what you're doing. All right, their lines hit our 2nd or 8th division charge with the shock troops. There's good death spam. Our archers are working, right? In that 6th division, they have lots of ammo, so we can leave everybody on auto fire now. All right, now their infantry line, a huge line of infantry surrounding our square. We can't fight it, right? Even though we have Sturgian infantry, in theory, they're better than Khuzait infantry. We have way less units, so we've got to use it in that defensive square. Getting hit with fucking javelins here. There's a huge amount of cavalry still on our right flank, but I think we've done a number on their horse archers, and now it's just fight for your life, right? We've made our chess moves. Let's move these guys up closer. This 6th division might become important in this battle here. Those guys have fresh quivers, right? They just started knocking arrows, and we've got a shot here. The death spam is really good. I'm going to do a little work in this battle, of course, because I don't want to end this episode on a loss. We've been highly successful so far. Let's finish this with the plume here. All right, I want to charge that infantry division, but I can't, right? Every time I look, they're outnumbered. The old rule of thumb is very simple with the square. If they're outnumbered, leave them in the square. Once they outnumber the enemy, have them charge. Charge in a shield wall. Knock that guy off his horse back here. Our archers are starting to fight in melee right at the edge of the swamp, but they're fighting weakened enemies. Let's start moving up an infantry division here in a shield wall. I think these guys might have just routed. They either regrouping or routed. I think we made their infantry rout. Oh, shit. I'm off my horse. We got a new guy here. Thank you, RTS mod. Let's keep the pressure on him here. God damn, that's a lot of archers. This battle's not over yet, that's for sure. Get that 6th move up here. Fuck, they're starting to kite. That's the worst thing for us. I have hardly any cavalry left, and we're still dealing with horse archers. 126. The death spam looks great. I think we're annihilating the rest of their horse archers. Let's hold this 1st division in a shield wall and annihilate what's behind us here. We can't pursue their archers while we're being smoked here. Archers! Stand apart! Fuck, we're starting to get pounded by their archers. They have some Consguards left, but I think the main threat now is that archer division. It's time to push forward. Our rear is clear. Now we've got to close. And it's not going to be easy. Of course, we could try to go around the swamp, but man, are we going to get peppered on the hillside. Our infantry's already in the valley. Let's just push forward like this. Come on, boys. Fucking running into trees. Now we're on the other side of it, right? This is what the enemy was trying to do, close on all archers. Well, we're losing guys left and right here. God, they have a lot of archers. And of course it's marksmen, right? It's elite archers. We've set it up where it's all strong units for both sides. God, they're in a nasty formation too. It's just spread across the whole battlefield. Well, we got to close, and my job and whatever other cavalry is following me here, we just got to basically try to keep them occupied while our units close. We do have more units, I think, on the battlefield now, but they obviously have range, and a lot of these marksmen probably have a lot of arrows left, right? Because we've prevented them from really using their ammo. God, this is a long archer line. And you want to be like, just rout, you bitch. Let us win here so we look good on YouTube. My ego needs a boost on YouTube. Come on, let us win this battle. I'm going to do a little bit of stabbing here. They are kiting exemplary, or they're routing. I don't think they're routing, man. These fucks are about to shoot. They usually run, 50 to 80 feet, and then they turn and shoot. And here they go, starting to shoot. The good thing is I've got a half a health bar here. I've got some other cavalry following me here, so we're keeping them occupied. The 6th Division can now fire away now that they closed. I didn't mention that, but in order to make them close, what I do is tell them to hold fire and charge. Then, once they're closer, you can have them fire. I don't really want them shooting at 200 range here while the rest of our units get annihilated. I think we got these bitches, though. They're running up into the hills. They just refuse to quit. God, and every time they shoot, they kill like 20 guys. Well, either way, win or lose, this was definitely a great example of tactics with the Sturgeon force. Look, the bottom line is the Sturgeons just, they don't really have any advantages. They desperately need a boost, and finally these bitches are yelling for help. Sturgeon needs a boost more than any other kingdom. I've played an incredible amount of Bannerlord, and all of the other kingdoms have their strong points. Landia has great overall units. Their sharpshooters are savage, the Bolgiers. The Khuzait obviously are unique and highly deadly. The Fian champs are deadly, etc., etc. Right? The Aserai is my favorite kingdom in the whole game, and then you have this Sturgeon kingdom that seemingly doesn't have any. I mean, if you look at it on paper, there's virtually no advantage, right? I guess you could say their infantry is a little bit more armored than other. It's really splitting hairs to try to find some kind of advantage that the Sturgeons have, and hopefully the developers have heard the community, heard other people, heard me, right? Obviously with thousands of followers here, you guys see the same thing, and hopefully they do make some improvements. All of that aside here, as Manchug won't die in this battle, I appreciate you for watching this series. Of course, we're going to try to cover most of the rivalries throughout Calradia, whether it's the Valandians and the Batanians. We'll cover them. We'll obviously cover things like the Aserai and the Imperials. I'm not going to do probably the Imperials versus every kingdom, although we'll see. It depends on how popular these are. And of course, it depends on your feedback. Now, I love this shit. Our archers racked up kills, even though they're the weak-ass Khuzait archers, and this is even more beautiful. With our defensive structure there, we held their Khonsguards to a less than a 1-to-1 kill ratio. They lost 40 Khonsguards, and we only lost 35. I mean, that is dominance on the battlefield, to be sure. Of course, at this stage, you want to subscribe, friends. I appreciate you. Hit that like button on the way out. And with all that said, I will see you all next time.